So, um, we all knew we all knew this day was coming. The overturn of Roe v. Wade. We knew, and we knew it was going to be today. And I didn't really think it was going to upset me that much because I already knew that it was happening. And yet, when I got that news in the middle of my workout, oh boy, did I had a great workout, I will say that. Like, fuck your pre-workout shake. Have you tried reading the news? Anyway, um so that's awful. And at first I had this idea for today's Daily Signal to basically take us through the world of conservative reactions to this. If you take the conservative position at face value, then they believe that abortion kills babies. And if I believed that abortion killed babies, I too would want abortion to be ended. If you want my actual take on this, like, you should watch yesterday's video because I go into what I believe. But like, if I believed what conservatives say they believe, then I would be over the moon today instead of just unbelievably depressed. I would be so happy that so many lives were saved. And I put it to you that you can tell a lot about whether conservatives believe that today, because the conservatives that do believe that are going to be focused on lives saved, and the conservatives who don't are going to be focused on owning the libs or talking about how sad they are, just, being like they're bad losers, or, just like concentrating on protests. It's going to be a whole thing. And I was going to do a review of what that's looking like right now. And then I started to do it. And I realized that it's about 50-50. There are a lot of people who are genuinely super happy about the lives of fetuses being protected. And again, please check out my video from yesterday if you're interested in why I find that bullshit. But good. That's a consistent thing. And then about half of them are just, being little shits. So, anyway, the point is that when doing the research for that and pulling up the tabs, I just got real depressed. I don't want to talk about it. I don't know if you want to listen to it. It's not happening either way. Like, I can't and I won't. So instead of that, we are going to do an article about God, which actually ties in really neatly with the SCOTUS ruling today. Fewer Americans believe in God than ever. Here's Why It Matters by Star Parker. This is yesterday. Per a new report from Gallup, not linked, the percentage of Americans now saying they believe in God is the lowest since it first started doing the survey. In 2022, 81% of Americans say they believe in God. When Gallup first asked this question in 1944, 96% said they believed, and in the early 1950s it was up to 98. It remained over 90 until 2013 when it dipped down to 87. The current 81% is a 6-point drop from the last time Gallup asked the question in 2017. Digging down into the data, we get a mixed message about what it tells us about the future. On the one hand, the age group with the lowest percentage saying they believe in God is the youngest, 18 to 29, only 68% say they believe. Given that these young people reflect our future, we must assume that, with no change in their views, the country will continue its purge of religion from our lives. Now, here's where we're starting to get into the interesting bit. It's not possible that people's opinions are changing, or that culture is changing, for reasons that aren't top-down. The idea that we're purging religion implies active intent, and, that's like a baseline assumption that she doesn't feel the need to explain, so let's continue. On the other hand, the ethnic cross-section with the highest percentage saying they believe is what Gallup defines as, quote, people of color. I assume this means blacks and Hispanics. If I was writing an article, I would look it up if I wasn't sure, which you're sure. You know what that is. This group registers 88% belief, 9 points higher than white, who register 79%. Given that the demographic people of color is growing faster than white, so you do know what it is, and becoming each year a larger percentage of our population, this could point to a strengthening of faith on average in our population as we move into the future. I don't know, I feel like the math on that might be off, but it doesn't really matter. Why should we care about this? From a practical point of view, faith translates into behavior, and as faith diminishes, the incidence of behaviors that once were viewed as morally unacceptable increases. In 2001, the percentage of Americans saying the following behaviors are morally acceptable was as follows. Birth to unwed mothers, 45%. Gay, lesbian relationships, 40%. Abortion, 42%. In 2003, polygamy was deemed morally acceptable by 7%. In 2011, pornography was deemed morally acceptable by 30%, and in 2013, teenage sex was deemed morally acceptable by 32%. Here are the percentages of Americans saying in 2022 these same behaviors are morally acceptable. Birth to unwed mothers, 70%. Gay-lesbian relations, 71%. Pornography, 41%. Abortion, 52%. Teenage sex, 45%. Polygamy, 23%.
That's good.
I'm old enough to remember literally yesterday when the Heritage Foundation asserted that 90% of Americans oppose abortion. That came out the same day that this article did. Again, we can ask, so what? Says Starr. The vision of the founders of the country was freedom. The point was to keep government intrusion at a minimum and permit individual freedom at a maximum. The preamble to the U.S. Constitution notes that it was put forth to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. The Constitution was designed to limit government power to very specific defined areas that were deemed essential and appropriate for government. For this to work, we must assume we have a population of free individuals who manage their own personal affairs in a responsible way. The conservatives would like for you to believe that they are the party of freedom. But they aren't. And things like this are why they aren't. You're free to make the right decision, you see. And if you make the wrong decision, well, then I guess you weren't really worthy of freedom, were you? It is worth recalling once again George Washington's famous observation in his farewell address, which first appeared in print September 19th, 1796. Quote, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable, support reason and experience both..." Hold on. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable, support reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. I'm not going to look up that quote, but it's clearly pretty butchered because that doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like, grammatically, that doesn't make sense. You know what? I am going to look that up. Hold on. Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, the firmest props of the duties of men and citizens. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public fealty. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation desert the oaths which are the instruments of investigation in courts of justice? And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Wherever may be conceded the influence of refined educations on minds of peculiar structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. Okay, I see why they cut what they cut, even though the overall point is the same. The big thing that they cut, this part right here, and let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Like, Washington doesn't like indulging the supposition, but he indulges it. He seems to think the morality without religion requires education. Not everyone's going to be educated, therefore we got to do religion. So I see, okay. But it is interesting that they excluded that. And we'll talk about why that's so important in a second. Clearly, we have departed in a major way from this. Supreme Court decisions over the years have reinterpreted the Constitution to grant far more authority to the federal government than the founders had in mind. And along with this, as we see in Gallup polling, we see major deterioration in faith and significantly higher acceptance of many behaviors that were once deemed morally unacceptable, like gay people existing and being in love and having sex. That's just these fucking ghouls, man. Hence, we find where we stand today. Is it the opinion of this author that the expansion of government has led to a decline in morality? Because that's kind of what it sounds like. Again, per Gallup, only 16% are satisfied with the way things are going in the country. Government is in our lives in a major way, with trillion-dollar deficits and debt the size of our entire economy, and now inflation which reflects all this. Is there a way out without restoration of religious principle and personal responsibility, as Washington warned? I think not. Okay, let's unpack this article. The reason that they cut the thing out of the Washington quote is because this whole article rests on the idea that only religion can bring some kind of moral code. Basically, either you enforce moral behavior with authoritarianism, or religion leads people to make the right decisions because they believe in God. Either way, you're getting a top-down version of morality. Somebody is telling you how to act and be. There is no room in this structure for a liberal world or a leftist world. And there's no accounting for it. They've left out completely the idea that you could be moral and not religious. They cut it out of George Washington's quote, garbling it beyond recognition from a grammatical standpoint to avoid mentioning that there is the possibility of morality without religion. Why am I talking about this today? First of all, because I saw it this morning before the Roe v. Wade thing got handed down. I didn't realize how depressed I was going to be about it. But also because this is the moral justification for the government legislating morality. Ideally, we would not need a government because the church would run things. You would do things based on God. And of course, in their version, it comes from the heart and the soul as an individual choice to obey God. But of course, in reality, A, it would be from authoritarian church structures, public shaming, etc. And B, the construction of Christianity that is popular among people at the Heritage Foundation, evangelical Christians in America, is authoritarian. There are versions of Christianity that aren't like that. This is not one of those versions. So basically, it actually makes complete sense that people who talk endlessly about individual liberty are so easily fall into authoritarian lines of thought, because their idea of individual freedom is itself authoritarian. It's a weird conceit, and it took me a long time to really wrap my head around, but that is what's going on here, I think. So that's it. That's the video. I hate everything, and I'm so sorry that this is happening. People sometimes, when I doom post on Twitter, which is all the time now, people ask what can be done. And what I've heard, the idea that seems to make the most sense to me right now is find a charity that helps people get from states where you can't have an abortion to states where you can, so they can get medical care. And those are the organizations that we're going to want to donate to, time, money, publicity, whatever we can. I think that's the way forward. It does not fix anything. I don't have any way to fix this. Like, I feel like the train's left the station. I feel like this is just going to keep happening. I feel like this is the first of many really horrific Supreme Court decisions that I'm going to get to see in the next few years. I want to say that it's going to be okay. I'm not sure that it will be. I have a friend who says that looking to the unions makes sense right now. The union movement has never been more robust, at least not in my lifetime. And if people can be radicalized along those lines, if people can realize that the government will not save them, and that we're going to have to save ourselves, we're going to have solidarity, we're going to have to organize, we're going to have to agitate for our own rights because nobody is coming to save us. Mom and dad went out to get cigarettes a long time ago, and the cupboards are running bare. So this would be a good time to do things like look into unionization, look into actual operational leftist things that are happening in this country. Not Twitter leftism, actual goddamn getting results leftism. There are going to be protests, and maybe by the time you see this, the protest will have been terrifically large. My guess is we're going to have a night of like moderate protests. Portland will probably pop off. New York might, probably not. Somewhere else probably will. There'll be a couple places. Tomorrow the conservatives will be howling with the desire to suppress protest because, once again, if you don't have individuals doing the right thing, then we have to make them do the right thing. And there's no room for anything else. I don't think protests are, look, go to a protest if you want to, okay? I'm not trying to discourage you. It can be good and cathartic to express your anger. It can be meaningful to not go quietly into this good night. But I do think that if your activism starts and ends with protests, then, well, I'm just not sure it's going to work. I say this as somebody who was on the ground for over 100 nights in Portland in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests, and ultimately they didn't really accomplish much. So I'm not sure that I would personally be able to honestly endorse somebody pouring their heart and soul into something like that again. I think that harm mitigation by helping people get abortion care would be good. And I think that looking into robust structures that do not depend on the government to take care of us would be a good idea. But that's all the ideas I've got. All right. It's shower time. Everyone have a good day.